sneezing. Come on in, everybody. You got 16 seconds, so you better make it quick. Come on in, find a seat.
Hello.
Brentley, I don't know if that mic's
hey,
gonna work for you.
How are you doing?
I don't know.
All right, cool.
Maybe Nathan can patch it up for us. Nathan Marks. Not
Hey, bro.
Sheehan.
Hey.
You could be in the splash zone here. Something
JB's
something
gonna
is
be the only
happening
one in the front row.
in this space right now.
There we go. I
Well-
can hear myself now.
Oh, you're here.
Hey.
Hey, Brantley.
Did you
Hey,
just
Nick.
start talking and it magically was fixed?
Yep. Magically by
Delicious.
our tech guys.
Magically delicious. What cereal is that for? Is that for Lucky Charms?
I think.
gotta be
Lucky
for Lucky
Charms.
Charms.
Yes.
Because
Okay.
it's the luck of the
What?
Irish.
Listen, I only listen to like half of the Lucky Charms things because I only like half of the cereal.
The marshmallow part.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I hear. Ma and Del. Dough.
All right.
Well, good morning, everybody. So, what? Last week we had Easter.
Yeah.
That feels like it was so long ago.
It
at this
It
point.
does feel like a long week.
So we missed you guys the week before. We were here, but then we also had United Night.
That's true. The United Night of Worship. And we were
United
at
Night
North
Worship.
Hills.
That's right. So that also feels like it was a year ago, basically.
does.
I don't know why, but hey, did anybody have spring break within that time? Those past 2 weeks, did you have spring break? Nice. Anybody do anything awesome for
Some.
spring break when you were gone? Nope. Just chilling.
had one
Yeah.
in-
What'd you do that was awesome?
We're on a cruise.
Whoa. Where did
Where'd
you
you
go?
go?
Where to? Bahamas.
Nice. You look very tan. Staying with you. Was that your intent, to get very tan on your cruise?
Yeah.
Really?
Awesome.
That was number one goal. Not to eat as much as you could. Just, yeah. Did you
No.
order any food to your room? Any room service? No? Not at all? That might be my favorite part of a cruise. Is not only can you eat whatever you want and as much as you want, but you can also say like, hey, in the middle of the night, bring me a sandwich.
I've never been on a cruise, so.
Like a little BLT.
Really?
But you have
Is that your midnight snack?
on a cruise it was. I tried it
Really?
once.
Yeah, on
I
a
was
cruise
like,
it'll be.
I need one of these daily now. This tasty BLT. They also have some pie that came to my room from time to time, and
I would do that.
yeah.
Nice.
Trust me, guys. I know what I'm talking about. Brentley, you have some glasses that would help you on a cruise, I think.
I do. Guys, I get really like motion sick, whether it's like on a boat or in a car or
seen
on a
these?
plane or something. So I found these glasses
Oh, we need a
online.
picture.
Yeah, we should have had a picture. It's okay. But there are like round ones right here, but then they also have like some on the side, and then there's like some blue liquid that like moves depending on like the horizon, I guess. So
Wait a minute. Who's back there? Can
Are
you?
you
Are you
trying?
doing it? Are you doing it?
He's looking.
I was like, we can get a picture of this. Okay.
He's
we're
going.
working on it. I haven't tested them out yet because there's apparently a 10-minute buffer time.
Guys.
So a lot of my commute is not really worth doing anything. But once I like go up to the mountains and some curvy roads, I'll definitely try them out.
You've heard of 4 Eyes.
Yeah, this
But
is.
have you heard of 6 Eyes?
Yeah,
Because this is a treat. Hopefully we'll be able to see it in just
Does
a
anyone
second.
else in here get really bad motion sickness? Just
Yeah.
like Brantley? You do? You do?
I will admit I do now.
None of the
Man,
guys
I would
do?
have thought there would be
None
more of
them?
us.
Okay.
Well, you guys are all lucky that you don't have to deal with that.
it's all right. I saw that.
You get
no one
what?
else did.
Yeah.
You get unmotion sickness? What's that? That's
Oh,
so
interesting.
strange.
You need to move.
He needs to be moving around.
Interesting. All right, well, we do have a couple of announcements, and
Yeah.
hopefully we'll get that picture. The first one is signing up for our hike day. We've got a
Yes.
hike day coming up
Middle
on
school
May
hike day.
20th.
20th. Yep.
And that's a Saturday. It's going to be an all-day experience. We're going, what's the hike we're
DuPont
doing?
State Forest, the Triple
DuPont.
Falls hike.
The
Triple
Triple Falls
Falls.
hike.
That's
so,
where they filmed Hunger Games.
This is a guys and girls hike. It's not just one specific gender. So you can sign
Yep.
up no matter who you are.
Yeah, there's limited spots though, so if you're wanting to come, make sure you sign up soon.
Yes. Do you know how many spots we have? 20?
We have 18 student spots total, but we already have
18.
4 taken, so we're down to 14.
Oh, get them now. Get them now.
Yep.
So again, that's an all-day thing. It's a lot of fun. We went last year, and it was a blast. Just a good,
Yeah.
good day to get away. Hopefully, some good weather. will
Yeah,
be
we went
happening.
swimming
Yeah, I hope
last
so.
year.
Yeah,
Got
we
to
did.
get
It was
wet.
it was perfect
went
weather
Take a
last
dip
year.
in the river.
Went swimming. Yep. Trevin, our intern from last year, if you remember him, he lost one of his. Well, he temporarily lost one of his Crocs. It just slipped off his foot into the water.
There's the picture.
Started going downstream.
There we go.
Oh wow.
Those are the motion
so
sickness
apparently the
goggles.
blue liquid is supposed to move and help you not get sick.
Brentley,
So-
what are you doing?
Yeah, the ones on the sides are also circles. So, yeah, I don't really know the science behind it, but I'm willing to try it.
How much were these?
They were like $10.
Yeah, that's just flush it down the toilet. This pair of glasses is gonna cure your motion sickness.
Hey, I'm
Are you
willing to try
kidding
it.
me?
It had great reviews.
That's like, hey, put this bracelet on.
I've tried those as well. They do help a little bit.
I think they do actually help a little bit. But still, it's like, what'd you put in the bracelet, dude? Did you put
It's
some,
like a pressure point. or
like
something.
special moon juice or something?
Moon juice?
Yeah, like those crystals people buy. This was under the light of the moon, meaning I left it outside one night, and the moon rays touched the crystal. Now it'll heal your warts and your boils. So these are true stories with Dallas. Okay, second announcement is United Night on the 21st. What do they need to know about that?
Yeah,
Brentley?
that's our last United Night of the school year.
Yes.
It's also the last day of small groups for the school year. So it's a big day. That's like at the end of
Wow.
that, we're going to move into
Big
our summer
grown.
programming. I know. But you guys still have like over a month of small groups. So don't worry, you still got plenty of time.
We know you love small groups, though.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's good.
That's it.
Girls group coming to my house in a couple
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah, our 8th
Courtney
grade girls.
and Dree's group.
Yep.
8th grade girls coming to my house for some dinner. We'll be there. It'll be a lot of fun. So I think that's all the announcements we have. Nick, you've got a game that I don't think we've ever played before.
I don't think we have.
I'm
You've been
excited.
coming with a few of those lately. So I'm excited to see
It's
what
a good
happens.
game. The name of the game is Cheese Hair.
Cheese hair.
Cheese Hair.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, real dramatic.
it.
It's a game where there's gonna be two teams, and two of the contestants are gonna be here, and two of them are gonna be on this side of the stage, and you're gonna have a hairnet covered in shaving cream if you're in the chair, and your teammate is gonna have to throw as many cheese puffs on your head, stick it to them, and make it look like you have cheese hair.
So
I like
how do
it.
they win, Nick?
How do you win?
Yeah.
You have the most cheese on your head.
All right.
Most little
Simple
strands
as
of
that.
hair.
So they have
Love
to
it.
stick to the very end.
They have to stick to
Okay.
just anywhere on the cap.
Julian.
Cry about it. All right, I need a girl team and I need a guy team.
He did,
All right,
he
I'll
did that,
pick the
Alex.
girls.
You wanna do it?
It's not lost
All
on
right,
me.
you were up first. Let's get it.
I need a
And
pair of
I'm gonna need one
girls.
more guy. You wanna do it? All right,
Who
come on
wants
up, buddy.
to come up?
I'm sorry, JB. All right, come on, boys.
Anybody?
Come on up here.
Judah and Jackson.
Come on up, stand right
JB,
here.
just take a
Are
seat.
you guys going up
Just take a
together?
seat.
Yeah? Yeah? Okay, come on.
Partner team.
Come on, ladies. All right. Let's get their names and their motivation this morning. I'll grab some
All right, guys can go
items.
first.
All right, your name and why you wanted to play.
Judo. I don't know.
Love it.
Very
Love it.
motivating. All right, your name and why you want to play.
Jackson, and I also don't know.
All right, lovely.
All right, girls, I need a really good reason that you want to play. All right, name and why.
My name is Claire, and I want to be Jackson.
All right.
My name is Mercy, and I think I was tricked into this.
Tricked into it. Love it.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so can each team decide who's going to be throwing and who's going to be having the hairnet?
You're throwing, and you've got the cheese head? All right. Yeah? Okay. We need to get a hairnet on you.
Yes, so could the contestants please step down
Do
here?
you want to pull your hair up? Or just leave it? Yeah? Might be easier to keep it clean. Make sure all of his hair's in there.
Judah.
All right. Mercy, you can go on down.
Equate regular shave foam produces a thick, rich lather that delivers a smooth, comfortable, close shave. I'm pretty excited for you guys this morning to,
So it
to
was actually a
partake
prank.
in this
We're
Equate
gonna
shave foam.
be shaving all of your hair off. That's the real point.
What are we?
Yeah, right?
We're talking like. All right,
All right,
you,
don't
need
move
to
your
keep
head.
you need to keep your
All
head
right.
still.
For those of you with the shaving cream on your head, try not to shake too much and get it all over the floor. We do have a tarp to help, but
Oh,
yeah, make sure you shake that up real good.
it's getting squirty, huh? Listen, I'm doing great.
This is awesome.
Is this
Make sure you get it
enough?
on the top because they're gonna be throwing from this direction.
Okay, lean your head back. Yeah, just a little bit.
Love it, love it.
Does that look good?
Yeah, get some more on there.
Do the
more
whole
on,
hand.
More on the front.
That's definitely gonna fall on you.
Yeah.
Oh no, oh no. Wow,
There, yeah.
you're just dumping it. I'm
Wait,
so
all right,
conservative.
hold on. Now you need to give Mercy a little bit more.
All right, Marcy, could you tilt your head
You
back
look
a little
beautiful,
bit?
Jackson.
Tilt your head back.
You want more?
Backwards? Like
Where?
That way? This way.
You're the one. How heavy is your head right now?
All right, Claire, you can come over here. Nick, do they have a line
You guys
to
both
stand
look
behind?
like George Washington. Just wanted to let y'all know that.
Yeah, this is what they were going for back in the old days.
All right, Nick, where do they need to stand? How far back?
They can stand at the mics, so these
Okay.
are two good spots for them.
That's great.
All right, and so at the end of, can we get a timer for a minute, Luke?
These look like just really like protective helmets on your head right now.
Luke,
It's
are
not,
we able to get a
though.
timer for a minute? That'd be great. Okay, so at the end of the minute, we're gonna tally up, or just count, how many strands of cheese hair that each of them have on their head, and the winner has the most.
All right, can they throw handfuls at a time, or is it one at a time?
Should we let them? Handfuls or singular?
Really? I don't care. Just do what you want.
Yeah.
All right, however,
whatever is
however you think,
necessary.
you just have to stay there. All
Can
right,
we get a trash can up here?
all right, can we start that timer?
Listen, we know that many of you are going to pile
All right,
onto
here
the
we go.
ground and get the cheese.
Oh,
are
go,
they
go,
going?
go.
Oh, hello. Nice. The guys got some in the hair?
Oh,
Got-
there we go.
This is a great idea. Oh, yeah.
We're gonna need to vacuum
Great
for
job,
sure.
Judah. I think they're going to run out of cheese puffs
Yeah, guys.
before the time
You
is
gotta
done.
think about this. Maybe throw one at a time so you actually get some more on there if you're more
If you have
accurate.
to pick them
Don't
up
hide
off the
your
floor,
face.
we'll allow it.
Come on, Judah. Strategic. Why are you guys getting closer? Come on.
Pick them up off
We need a
the floor.
couple more.
Stepping
This is
on
gonna
all
be
of them.
this is gonna
You
be
can
a
pick
tight
them up
game
off
right
the
here.
ground and reuse them.
Nice.
20 seconds.
20 seconds.
Come on. Oh, that was a
That
good
was a good shot,
Judah.
yeah. Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
love
There we
it.
go.
Perfectly landing on the top of her head.
Come on, Judah.
In the
All right,
Hey.
audience,
some
help
on
us
there?
count it down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time's up. All right, Nick,
Yes.
while you're sweeping those up,
All right, I'm counting
I'm
this.
gonna count the girls.
No. The time was up though. I did stay on. Get it out of here. Okay.
All right.
I think I have a good count.
All right, I do too.
What's the
Did
tally?
you get more than 10?
Yes.
Did you get more than 15?
We got 15 exactly for the girls.
15 exactly?
Yeah.
The guys got more than 15.
How many did they get?
They got more than 20.
Oh my goodness.
They got 22 Cheetos
Oh my word.
upon that beautiful head of Jackson. Well
Way
done,
to go.
guys. Hey, yeah, you can take it off and eat it. That sounds like a great idea. No, you cannot smash it in unless he really wants you to. Jackson's really thinking about that. Hey, turn to your neighbor and ask. Oh, he did it. He did it. I kind of gave permission for that, okay? Jackson also gave permission, so it wasn't just out of nowhere. Hey, ask your neighbor, would you rather have like the Cheetos, the long Cheetos, or the cheese balls? The cheese balls. On your mark, get set, go.
Well, guys, sometimes I'm just going to be honest. The transition from the game to singing is really hard.
It just gets harder and harder
It
every
gets
time.
more difficult the more games that they keep coming up with. I have to figure out how to get from whatever that is to like, now we're going to do Jesus stuff.
Sometimes it's a real life chicken.
Yeah, sometimes it was a chicken in high school. Like 2 or 3 weeks ago, they brought a real chicken and put it in a box. It was one of Dallas's chickens, wasn't it? Yep. So it just gets more and more difficult. So I think I'll just talk about spring cleaning to transition us. Is anyone doing spring cleaning? Maybe not you, but your parents. A few hands. Does anybody do spring? Doesn't do it at all. Your house is just always awful. Good for you. So over the weekend, Brentley and I just deep scrubbed our entire house. Like hands and knees, cleaning the carpets, cleaning the floors, Swiffering the floors, dusting every possible inch of the home. Our house is spotless right now. Feels really good. So if you're one of the people who never does any cleaning and your house is just horrible, this is a wake-up call right now. Clean your house, clean your room. You're in middle school. I know what it looks like, because I know what my room looked like in middle school. It wasn't good. Pick up your clothes. Guys, on this half of the room, there's a thing. It's a hamper. Put your clothes in it. It's good. All right, that's our transition. Now we're into Jesus stuff. Why don't we stand together this morning? And as we get ready to sing, I'm going to read out of Psalm 28, the first two verses. This is what it says. To you, O Lord, I call. My rock, be not deaf to me, lest if you be silent to me, I become like those who go down to the pit. Hear the voice of my pleas for mercy when I cry to you for help, when I lift up my hands towards your most holy sanctuary. So I just want to talk to you guys this morning about lifting hands. So we hear it in the Psalm right here. Hear the voice of my pleas for mercy when I cry to you for help, when I lift my hands towards your most holy sanctuary. So the psalmist, his name is David here, is doing this as a physical posture of dependence. So raising hands is nothing more than just a simple physical posture of prayer. And he's doing it here in dependence, saying, I'm reaching out to God for help. So he's saying, hear my plea for mercy when I cry for help. You can also raise your hands and worship as a physical sign of victory, of rejoicing. I mean, you guys have probably done this already, right? Cheering for a sports team, or maybe one of your friends did something really good. You raise your hands, you lift them high in triumph or celebration. So that's another thing that lifting your hands can be. It's celebrating in the might and the power and the victory of our God, the battles that he has won, the things he has done for us. So as we sing this morning, let's keep that in mind. We're going to sing a song that reminds us that our battles, the things that we wrestle and fight with, have already been triumphed. He has already won in them, and we can rejoice and celebrate in his victory this morning. So let's sing together. serve a faithful God.
You heard your children then, you hear your children now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You answered prayers back then, and you will answer now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You were providing then. You are providing now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You moved in power then. God, move in power now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You were a healer then. You are a healer now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You were a savior then. You are a savior now. You are the same God. You are the same God. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. Now I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. On your faithfulness. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. On your calling on the Holy Spirit. Almighty river, come and fill me again. Come and fill me again. Would you guys pray with me? Dear God, I thank you for this morning, even though it was a little rainy as we came in. I pray that throughout this morning, we all have open ears and open hearts to hear what you have to say, and we really take the time to reflect on these words and use them as encouragement and guidance for our next few weeks as the school semesters are coming to an end and we're all just waiting for summer. Give us the encouragement we need to continue on and continue in a way that shows your love and your light. Amen.
Amen. You guys can take a seat. Nice messy game this morning. Did you guys like that? Jackson, you feeling good? Yep. Got it everywhere. He smells nice and minty fresh a little bit. Ladies, I don't think you had quite the same mess as the boys did. Let's be honest here. So, but that's fun. Fun to sing with you guys and just remind ourselves of God's word and how faithful he is, his promises to us. This morning, we're going to do something a little bit different. So if you remember, a few weeks ago, before Easter, before Palm Sunday, we wrapped up our Jesus Is But Also series. So if you're coming, we're not in the middle of anything. If this is your first time with us or first time back in a long time, we're glad you're here. We're not in the middle of anything. In fact, this is going to be called a one-off message, okay? And if you're taking notes, you can call this the Perhaps of Faith. And I kind of got this idea from Charlie, one of Charlie Boyd. He's one of our pastors here, and he taught a message on this kind of same thing. And it got my gears turning, made me start thinking, brought up some really good conversation in the community group that I'm a part of. And so I thought I'd share this message kind of it's from his Royalties series, or from our church's Royalties series. How many of you have heard a message from the Royalties series? Anybody? You've been downstairs on a Sunday morning, you've seen it? Yep, you heard it? Not many. Good. This is great. This was our goal long ago, that none of you would go to service. So that's a joke. We want you to be there. But I totally get it. Sometimes it goes over my head too. And so maybe you just want to be here, you're serving. But our church is going through a royalty series. And I think we're going to be there for quite some time. And basically what we're doing is looking back at some of the Old Testament leaders, some of the Old Testament kings and queens of the day. And one of those places that we're doing that, or have been doing that for the last several weeks, is in 1 Samuel. So I'm going to give you some time to find in your Bible, if you brought one today, the book of 1 Samuel. We're going to be in chapter 14, and we're going to talk about really the son. So I guess kind of like a prince figure of one of these kings. The king's name is Saul. The son's name is Jonathan. And we're going to talk about him for a few minutes this morning. Before we do, though, I want to kind of talk about maybe one of the riskiest things I've done. And I say that kind of like tongue-in-cheek. It wasn't really one of the riskiest things, but there's this thing that's happened to me. And maybe you've heard me talk about it in the past. But as I've gotten older, I've become more and more afraid of roller coasters, okay? Now, how many of you, since you were birthed, you were afraid of roller coasters? Anybody? Do you want to admit that? Thank you for those hands. Sort of afraid of them. How many of you, when you see roller coasters, your heart gets thumping in a good way, and you're like, I can't wait to get on that bad boy? Yes. Okay, that was how I once was. How many of you have been to Carowinds? Anybody ever been there? Just up north, right across the border? And at Carowinds, a few years ago now, basically it's been your whole lifetime since this one has existed, but the roller coaster known as Fury was just opened up, okay? How many of you have ridden Fury? Anybody? Yes. It's like one of the fastest roller coasters in America. I think it's the fastest still on the East Coast. A crazy experience is this roller coaster, and it's also one of the tallest roller coasters around. And so this made me very nervous. As I was driving at some point, for some reason, we decided to take a group of students. I don't know if it was with small groups or what it was, but take a group of students up to Carowinds, and as we're getting there, we're like, man, we're going to be early. We're going to be able to ride rides before there's even lines for the rides. And inevitably, people start talking about the roller coasters, and they start talking about the Fury, and talking about how tall it is, and people are looking it up on their phones like, oh yeah, it goes so fast, bro. And they're like, Dallas, are you going to ride the Fury with us? We actually might be able to go a couple of times. And I'm like, no, I'm not, right? In my heart. But on the outside, I can't be a wuss in front of these students. And so I said, maybe, which is not very brave. We'll see. We'll see how the day goes. And so they're talking about it, and we're getting closer and closer. And at this point, we're close enough. We're pulling into the parking lot, and the decision is made based on man, there's almost nobody on the roller coaster right now, and man, I bet the line's really short. Let's go do this first thing of the day, okay? So already just threw up in my mouth, right? I've been kind of preparing myself, okay, they're gonna make me do this roller coaster at some point in the day, and now there's no getting back, no backing out of it unless I fake an injury or something, okay? And not only am I gonna have to do it at some point during the day, but it's going to be the first ride of the day. They didn't even, put us on a little teacup and spin me around a couple times or something, right? They wanted to go full into the Fury, and I mean, I'm sweating as I'm waiting in line for this, and not because it's hot. It was cool at the beginning of the day, and we're sure enough, we're getting in line. This is the first thing that we're gonna go on, and guys, I was freaking out. This felt very risky to me. I've seen the stories of people flying off and their head going everywhere and whatever, and I was like, this is gonna be me. This is gonna be me. It's gonna get to the top of that thing, and it's just gonna keep going. It's not gonna stop and tip over. It's just we're going to the moon or something, okay? And we're done. We're all done. And so I get on this thing, and they strap me in, and I'm trying to remind myself, okay, these are relatively safe machines, okay? A lot of engineering has gone into this. Maybe some of you know more about that in the room than I do. And we get on, and we start cranking up, and I just close my eyes. I just close my eyes all the way up, And it wasn't until that first drop, and when the first drop was done, I was good, okay, that I actually opened my eyes. I did not want to see how tall I was. I did not want to see, that I could see my house from there or anything like that. I was not interested. I was like, I'm gonna tough this out. They brought me on this. I'm gonna love it after the first drop. And sure enough, it was awesome. And I think we rode it a couple more times, and I was a little braver on those times. But it felt very risky. I didn't fall off, okay? I didn't fly off. I think everybody was safe. But for me, it felt like very risky in the moment. But as long as I was able to just get there, just get in line, there's no backing out, I'm stepping out almost in faith, right? Okay, this thing's not gonna break. People have researched this very well. And it was an awesome experience. How many of you have had an experience like that on a ride? Maybe you were a little hesitant to ride it, and maybe you closed your eyes on the first third of the ride, but afterwards you're like, man, I could do this again. My boys kind of had a similar experience when we were at the lake not long ago, and I started tossing them off of this 10-foot dock into the water, which admittedly, that's a big drop for kids who are 2 feet tall, right? But as soon as they get that first throw in and that first fall into the water, dude, they're just in it, and they're climbing up the ladder, and they got big smiles on their face, no more fear anymore. But at first it felt like a risky bit of behavior. But if they just kind of take the first step, okay, Dad's asking me to do this, okay, a bunch of these middle schoolers are asking me to ride this ride. If I could just get in line and get strapped in, then I'm locked in. There's actually, I think, no going back. That's like a law. They won't let you off the ride. I don't think that's true. I think they let you off if you cry enough and you threaten to sue. Not that I have any experience with that. But how many of you would say, maybe not a roller coaster, but you've had something else like that where, yeah, I didn't know for sure, but I just made it. I just took a step out. Maybe your friend was asking you to do something with them that you were like, I don't know, that doesn't sound so fun. I'll have to tell you guys, one time I rode down a river that was very rapidy on an air mattress and was probably not a great idea, but my friend got sucked under and he spun around, and I'll have to tell you that story at some point. But he convinced me to go, and I was like, okay, if I can just go there. We had life jackets, okay, don't freak out. I don't think my mom knows about that story to this day. But maybe there's something like that, hey, let's go on this camping trip, or hey, will you join this sports team with me, or will you go to this movie with me? I know it doesn't look like it's gonna be a great movie, but I think it could be awesome. Or it's something like that where, hey, if you'll just take the first step, I kind of know the direction that we're going, okay, I'll take the first step and I'll just trust that the rest is gonna take care of itself. I think in some ways there's some element of that when it comes to our faith and our walk with God. And if you're a Christian in here, or maybe even if you're not, this is something that could apply to you. Maybe there's things that God has been asking you to do or inviting you to step into that you've been hesitant because you're like, I don't know, man, what's really going to be the benefit of that? Or okay, maybe God is asking me to share my faith in a different way, or maybe speak up in small group a little bit more than normal, or maybe just to wake up a little earlier and engage him and read the scriptures and pray. Or maybe he's asking you, you were wrestling this year with, hey, am I supposed to sign up for a mission trip or not? Or am I supposed to go serve with my family in this thing? And there's these things that it feels like God's calling you to, but you're hesitant and you're just waiting. Maybe if the clouds would part and trumpets would sound, then I would know. If God descended himself, if Jesus came back and then he told me, or if I hear an audible voice, or if I stumble upon a video on YouTube that just has all these answers and says, yes, you must go, right? We wait for these miraculous moments sometimes to the point that it leaves us paralyzed in our faith. Because some of you, you're hearing that, you're like, yeah, I actually got something. And you've been waiting on that thing for a long time. And you still haven't moved. Maybe it was the mission trip. And I'm not trying to knock you at all, but I do want to poke and encourage and challenge you. Maybe it was the mission trip this year, and you're like, man, I wanted to sign up for that mission trip, but I never felt like God gave me total peace about it. That's a big phrase in our Christian culture, isn't it? I just need to have peace. I need to have certainty about that thing before I make a move. Sometimes, though, I don't know that God always gives us that full peace. And I don't know that he has to in order for us to move. And there's actually this story here in 1 Samuel 14 where it seems like, hey, they know the direction that God's calling them to. They don't know the hows. They don't know all the ins and outs. They don't have this parting of the clouds moment at least initially, and yet they move forward towards what God's called them to do because they're simply obeying him, and they're stepping out in faith. It's this thing that we're going to call the perhaps of our faith. That's kind of what I titled this message, the perhaps of our faith. Like, hey, maybe if I step out, God will meet me there. Let's go ahead and look in 1 Samuel chapter 14. We're going to start in verse 6. And there's this guy named Jonathan who I kind of talked about earlier. He's the son of King Saul. And his dad, King Saul, was a pretty back and forth guy. It seemed like there were these moments where he was all in and just on fire and about, hey, whatever the Lord's going to lead me into. But then there were a lot of times where it seemed like the opposite was true, where instead of trusting God, he kind of tried to take things into his own hands. And Saul was the king of Israel, the king of God's people in the Old Testament. He was one of the kings, and he came right before arguably the greatest king of Israel, who was known as David. And so maybe you've heard stories of Saul and David where they kind of had this, seems like a competitive back and forth. Like David seems to kind of be the better king even before he's king, and Saul gets angry about that, and David kind of goes and says, no, I'm not trying to take over your position just yet. I'm trusting the Lord with it, and Saul gets angry, and all these kind of back and forths happen between Saul and David. And one of David's closest friends, in fact, it seems like his closest friend, his best friend, like through thick and thin, we're in this together, is Saul's son, Jonathan. And at this point in 1 Samuel chapter 14, Saul, the king, is in Israel, is in a battle with the Philistines. And at this point, the Philistines have kind of blocked Israel from getting like real weapons. Like they kind of made sure that Israel didn't have any blacksmiths who could create like real good weapons, spears and swords and things like that. You know, they did not have the same weapons that we have today. Okay, so spears and swords were like the weapons of the day, and the Philistines had blocked them from getting the weapons. And so most of the weapons they had outside of like Saul and Jonathan, they had real weapons because they were royalty, and so they could get a hold of some different things. But for the most part, the army of Israel was fighting with like farmers' weapons, like plows and pitchforks and some pickaxes and stuff like that. Like they were just using whatever they had. And so it seems like they're kind of at this stalemate where they're waiting like, hey, God's going to have to do something, or something crazy is going to have to happen. And so Saul and hundreds of his men, his army, who, again, they don't have real weapons, they're kind of sitting off to the side and just like waiting, it seems, for something to happen. Waiting, even though they know, hey, God's on our side, God's with us, and it seems God has even promised, hey, I'm going to give Israel victory over the Philistines. And Saul knows that. He's heard it. He's probably asked some questions about it. And yet, he's just kind of waiting to the side. Remember we talked about this waiting game that we often play where we're like, I'm just going to wait, and maybe God's called me to that, but I'm going to wait for him to make it really, really clear and really, really sure. Give me that peace that surpasses all understanding, that makes me feel like I'm taking a cold shower, I'm in a cold bath, like, oh, yes, now I know that God's going to do it. And it seems like that's what Saul and his men are waiting for. And Jonathan kind of catches this idea and is like, no, God's going to give us the victory. He's promised that to us. He's with us through it all. And so this is kind of where we pick up in 1 Samuel 14, verse 6. Jonathan said to the young man who carried his armor, also known as his armor bearer. Sometimes I like to think about it like a caddy for a golf player. I don't know if you know what a caddy is for a golfer, but basically the caddy carries the golf bag around and makes sure that he's taking care of the clubs while the golfer is doing all the things that he needs to do, and usually just holding one golf club at a time. And the caddy says, here, sir, you need your wedgie, and now you need your putter. It's actually a wedge, but or you need this iron or whatever. Like you need this just to see if you're listening, okay? And most of you didn't laugh until I clarified. Maybe you were concerned that something happened with my brain in the moment, which is probably more likely. I've been reading a lot of Captain Underpants to my boys, okay? So it's very likely that was just a Freudian slip. Okay, so it's like a caddy. He's kind of carrying the armor. He's kind of holding the things so that Jonathan doesn't get too tired or he doesn't get too weighed down. And then when he needs them, that's when the armor bearer is kind of passing some of those things along. But it seems like he's got probably some of his own armor, so he's like doubling up. He's carrying his own kind of weapons because he's got to fight too. And Jonathan said to the young man who carried his armor bearer, come, let us go over to the garrison of these uncircumcised. Without getting too much into what uncircumcised means, okay? Ask your parents, I guess. But that was a symbol. It was a sign that God said, hey, if you're going to be my people, Israel, all of the men must have this mark on them, so to speak. They must be circumcised. And so anybody who was not part of God's people, they were not yet circumcised. They were uncircumcised. So kind of a funny thing, if you think about it, that they call the Philistines the uncircumcised. So we're going to go over to their camp. Jonathan is presenting this to his armor bearers, those people who are not God's people, the people that we have been promised victory over. And then he says this, it may be that the Lord will work for us, for nothing can hinder the Lord from saving by many or by few. And his armor bearers said to him, do all that is in your heart, do as you wish. Behold, I am with you, heart and soul. So the armor bearer is in this, even to the point where Jonathan says, you know, hey, does he say, like, hey, we've got clarity. We're going to go there and God's going to give us victory. No, he doesn't say that. He actually says, it may be, or hey, maybe, or this word that we're using this morning, perhaps. In fact, if you have the NIV version of the Bible or maybe a different translation, it actually may use the word in there, perhaps. God will meet us when we go. Where is he going to meet them? So he's going to this garrison. He's kind of going to this camp or this place where the Philistines are set up, and it's an interesting space. It seems like on one side they're going to actually have to kind of climb down a cliff and kind of get in this little like valley area or a little pass area. And in order to get to the Philistines, they actually have to climb up some more rocks. So they're going to go, get this, like they don't have real clarity from the Lord other than what they know God initially promised. And yet Jonathan is saying, hey, we're going to go and we're going to see if God will meet us there. Perhaps he's going to meet us there when we get there. But we're going to put ourselves in the line of fire. We're going to put ourselves in this valley where we're pretty vulnerable. And let's see if God will show up. Now, admittedly, he does ask, like, hey, and maybe when we get there, let's see what they say. So the next part of this chapter, verse 8 says, then Jonathan said, behold, we will cross over to the men, and we will show ourselves to them. We'll say, hey, we're here. If they say to us, wait until we come to you, then we will stand still in our place, and we will not go up to them. So, I mean, he's kind of like saying, hey, maybe God will give us some insight on what the battle plan will be once we get there, but we're still going to go nonetheless. And if they say, hey, we're coming down to you, then we'll stay where we are, and we'll fight them when they come to us. But if they say, verse 10, come up to us, then we will go up, for the Lord has given them into our hand, and this shall be the sign to us. So instead, we're gonna climb up to them if they say, hey, come on up here, see what's happening. Verse 11, so both of them showed themselves to the garrison of the Philistines, and the Philistines said, look, Hebrews are coming out of the holes where they have hidden themselves. And the men of the garrison hailed Jonathan and his armor bearer and said, come up to us, and we will show you a thing. It's kind of funny if you think about it. Come on up. We'll show you what we're made of. Show you what we got. We'll show you something, namely our weapons. And Jonathan said to his armor bearer, come up after me, for the Lord has given them into the hand of Israel. When Jonathan climbed up on his hands, then Jonathan climbed up on his hands and feet, and his armor bearer after him, and they fell before Jonathan, and his armor bearer killed them after him. And that first strike, which Jonathan and his armor bearer made, killed about 20 men within, as it were half a furrow's length in an acre of land. So they go up there, just two dudes. They take out 20 men, and if you keep reading the rest of this chapter, you actually see that Saul's men from pretty far away, they start to see like, hey, something's going on. There's some kind of commotion up here. In fact, this attack of just two guys so confused the Philistines that they're like, whoa, what's happening? And they start like fighting each other because they're not sure who's the enemy in this moment. And they actually start killing one another. And Saul's people see this commotion and it keeps going. They're like, man, this thing isn't stopping. And eventually they're like, maybe this is the sign that we need. And they start going and they join Jonathan and his armor bearer, and they end up defeating the Philistines. And it's a huge victory for Israel in that moment. But all started because Jonathan and his armor bearer were like, hey, let's go move forward in what the Lord's called us to. And perhaps God's going to do something as we do it. There's two phrases that are a little bit like some play on words, some word play for you that I think kind of draw out some of the principles or some of the big ideas from this chapter. The first one has to do with certainty, and it's this: when certainty is an idol, your faith becomes idle. You like that? When certainty is an idol, your faith becomes idle. Here's one of the things, again, we've already talked about it, that I think happens when we know, hey, I know God's called me to do this thing. And it could be something as simple as, and this is something that I kind of went back and forth on as I was your age, like, should I really wake up a little bit early to get in God's word? Or should I really make time during my day to pray? Like, what's going to be the big deal? Like, what's God actually going to do in that? But I kept feeling this knock on my heart and this pull on my mind. Like, no, these are things that God's called you into. Or it could be something bigger, like I mentioned earlier. Maybe it's sharing your faith or talking to someone about Jesus in a different way. It's at your school, or it's on your sports team, or it's a neighbor, or it's a family member. And you're like, man, I don't know. Or maybe it's something even bigger, like a mission trip, or some sort of serving opportunity, or something that you know, hey, based on the gifts that God has given you, the way that he's wired you, these are ways that God wants you to use your gifts. But we become paralyzed because we want this thing called certainty. And it's like, man, unless God parts the seas or opens up the clouds, speaks to me through a song or maybe through his audible voice or through a friend, God's going to have to do something crazy before I would take a step even towards that thing. But if Jonathan and his armor bearer waited for certainty, they never would have approached the Philistines like they did. They never would have taken out those first 20 men. They never would have started that commotion that eventually brought in Saul and his army to defeat. And who knows what would have happened that day. But Israel, it seems like, certainly wouldn't have had the same kind of victory that they did over the Philistines in that moment if Jonathan and his armor bearer had just waited for certainty. When certainty becomes an idol, meaning like it kind of steps into the place of God, like, because at some point you're not just waiting on God then, but you're waiting like, I want to feel comfortable, I want to feel safe, I want to feel secure, but God's not always in the business of our comfort or our safety or our security. I don't know if anybody's told you that. Like, yes, it's true that we're under his wing and that he is our fortress and all those kinds of things. But if you read the Bible, people died doing things for God. The disciples, many of them gave their lives for sharing the gospel. And that's not because God is just safe and he's going to put a pillow fortress around you. Like, he's a different kind of safe. He's a different kind of security. Sometimes it means that we do sacrifice our physical comfort and our physical safety for God. I'm not saying that everybody needs to go out and be a martyr this week. That's not what I'm saying. But sometimes maybe God is asking you to sacrifice a little bit of your reputation. Sometimes God is asking you to get a little uncomfortable. And oftentimes those things, that sacrifice is the reason we're like, no, I just got to be so sure and so certain. But when certainty becomes something that you lift up in a sense higher than God, your faith becomes idle, meaning it becomes like you're in neutral, in a car, so to speak. Or, we just went through James a few months back. Your faith becomes dead, useless. You're no longer following God. You've so lifted up this idol of certainty, surety, security, comfort, whatever it is for you. And now your faith has become dead and useless. And that's not the kind of life or faith that we're called to. So has that happened for you? Is it time for you to confess, hey, God, I think I've made certainty an idol. And I don't want my faith to be dead. I don't want my faith to be useless. I don't want my faith to be idle. God, would you forgive me and show me what it looks like to step forward into what you have for us. And as you do, maybe this next kind of word play is something that will be helpful. It's this: when we pray for total peace, sometimes God only gives us a piece. I know, it's silly, but maybe it'll help you remember. When we pray for total peace, remember I talked about, this is one of the big phrases in our Christian culture. Like, oh, maybe you've heard your family talk about this. And again, I'm not saying like, hey, so this is all wrong, but I think we've got to understand sometimes that God's not always going to give us complete peace and complete certainty and complete surety about the things that we're about to step into. Sometimes he just gives us a piece of the puzzle. Jonathan, armor bearer, hey, just know this. You've got the victory. God's with you. Israel, you're his people. Jonathan and the armor bearer knew just that little piece, and they said, so we're going to move forward. For you, it's like, hey, let's start small again. Bible, praying. If it's just some of those basic pieces of our faith, man, sometimes all you need to know is, yeah, God's called you to be in the Scripture. Because that's one of the places that you get to know him. That's one of the places that you start to understand how he's designed life and maybe some of the things that he's called you to step into. Things like loving your neighbor. Things like serving. Things like obeying. Yeah, so you need to be in the Scriptures. You need to be in prayer. Maybe that's all the piece that you need. And then you step forward and you actually go and do those things. Hey, yes, God has called you to put your faith on display. How that happens maybe isn't totally clear to you. Who you're supposed to talk with maybe isn't totally clear to you. But if you know that that's part of who you're supposed to be, then step out in faith and move towards the things that God's called you to. You see how this works? God's not always going to give us total peace. Sometimes, maybe one of the places that this happened for me, and then I'll wrap up, the clearest, like one of these huge life decisions, because oftentimes this is when it comes up. It's when we have a couple decisions, and maybe the decisions, it's not clear like, hey, this one is bad and this one is good. Maybe it's decisions between a few different good things, and at some point you just kind of have to weigh the practicals, and that's what I did when I decided which college I was going to go to. I know this is far off for you guys. It's like 4, 5, 6 years away if you end up going to college. But I kind of had 3 schools that were all awesome. One of them was Cedarville, which is where Jason Malone went, and another was Liberty, which maybe you've heard of Liberty, especially like sports things. They've been great the last few years, and they're like this huge Christian school in Virginia. And then the other one was North Greenville, which was local and kind of felt like, oh, it's the backyard school, like that'd be cool, but is it going far enough away? And ultimately, guys, I didn't know which place is God calling me to. These are 3 great locations. 3 locations with some pros, 3 locations with some cons. There was money coming from each school as far as scholarship stuff is concerned. And in the end, I just kind of weighed out the practicals. I knew that God had called me. Hey, you are going to go to college, because that was part of the path that I felt like God had laid out before me. And so pick one. And in the end, I looked at them very practically, and North Greenville was giving me basically a full ride to go. And I said, I don't have total peace about this. Like, there's some things that could go wrong here. There's some things that could go right here. I don't have total peace. Like, I still like liberty and the bigness and all the opportunity. But in the end, I stepped forward and said, well, hey, I think perhaps God's going to be with me as I make this step forward. And so I went to North Greenville, and he was. And man, I made so many friendships. I met my wife there. I had some great relationships with some professors, and God taught me a lot of things and grew me, and I was able to come back here on the weekends and be here and be a part of teaching in high school and middle school. And now, like 10 years later, literally, this May will be 10 years since I graduated. This makes me feel some kind of way. But I get to be here with you guys and be a part of everything that God's doing. But if I had just waited for certainty and waited for this parting of the clouds moment, I don't know, maybe I don't even end up making a pick to college because I'm so paralyzed by the fear of what if I make the wrong decision. No, if you know that God's called you into it, what might happen? And this is where I'm ending it. What might happen if you would take a step of faith towards that thing that you know God's called you into? Perhaps he'll meet you there and do something that you could only hope, dream, or imagine. Let me pray for us. God, don't let us be people who are paralyzed by making the wrong decision, by not having certainty, by not feeling this sense of peace. Let us be people who trust you. And if you've called us to step into it, God, would we step forward and have this mindset that it seems like Jonathan and then his armor bearer had of, hey, perhaps God's going to meet us there. If he's called us to it, then he's going to make a way for us.